I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we stand on and the living culture of the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. So hello everyone and welcome. My name is Tanya Katsanis and I am the City Marketing and Strategic Partnerships Officer for Georges River Council. I wanted to welcome you to this information session on creating business value for manufacturing SMEs using Futuremap. Today's information session aims to demonstrate how you can work with UTS through SME atUTS, which is a unique customised program that utilises IMCRC's Futuremap, and it's a platform that's designed to help you gain exclusive access to innovation expertise, research capabilities and world-class technology facilities that will allow you to underpin your business growth. Now, whilst COVID-19 has seen many businesses accelerate their digital thinking, the gap between initial exploration and subsequent adoption and investment is still evident. So I'm hoping that from today, you'll be able to find an opportunity that suits your business. Now, our presenters today are experts in their field. Simon, hi Simon. Now, he's a director at Industrial Transformation at IMCRC. Now, Simon is an experienced manufacturing operations executive who has worked in his 35-year career across a range of different industry sectors. And some of those include consumer goods, otherwise known as FMCG, industrial, automotive, rail and medical devices. He holds a manufacturing engineering degree and an MBA, as well as being a chartered engineer and lean management expert. Now for John Szabo. John is currently acting in the position of Director in the Corporate Relations Centre at the University of Technology in Sydney. His main role is setting the centre's strategic direction in relation to managing existing and growing university strategic partnerships. And prior to joining UTS, John's career spanned close to 20 years in the health industry. John is a strong advocate for the higher education and its impact on industry, government and the wider community. So today's webinar, just for some general housekeeping everybody, today's webinar is being recorded and there is a link to this recording that will be made available to you all within a week. So I'll now hand over the floor to Simon and I genuinely hope you grab something out of today's session. Thank you.
You're on mute, Simon.
Oh, come on. I should know better than that by now, shouldn't I? Morning, everybody, and welcome from down here in Melbourne, where we're days away from our sort of first Freedom Day, so we're all very excited. I want to just briefly introduce myself again. I come from a long manufacturing background, but reasonably new to Industry 4, which I think is reasonably relevant because you'll see as I go through this, I have a bit of a passion for the change dynamic here. What is it that's allowing people or holding people back? What is it that's making people move forward? Really proud to work with the UTS team and the other partner universities we have around the country to help industry move beyond that. So my ambition here today is to talk to you a little bit around some of the key messages from Industry 4, what we see out in the marketplace, what we see manufacturers doing, but also to introduce the concept of Futuremap and invite you to join us again in a few weeks when we'd like to run a Futuremap in the region supported by the UTS team. But John will talk a little bit more about how that works and how that runs. So I'm just going to jump into, if I can click my buttons right, hopefully this will work. Well, that's no good, is it? Okay, let's get a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Industry 4 generally here today and just run around a few key messages for you on some of the things that are important. Firstly, on the CRC itself. CRCs exists really to sit in between industry and the research sector to solve problems. CRCs exist on a range of subjects, as is around innovative manufacturing, with the ambition of encouraging more organisations to work with the university network around the country to do innovative and great things. We've got over 50 projects ranging from advanced materials through to some complex biomedics, into additive manufacturing, cobotics, augmented reality, and a really interesting breadth of those with 12 universities plus support with CSIRO. So we're seeing, if you add the money that government put on the table, industry put on the table, the in-kind, well over 200 million, I think that might be nearly 300 million now in terms of investment that's gone into manufacturing as a result of us being there. I joined about 2 years ago. I tend to sit on the outside of the projects, so I have are all a little bit more related to transformation and helping people think about their journey, and hence the Futuremap story. So I think that the simplest way for us to think about Industry 4 is the logical evolution of manufacturing. And again, many of you will have seen this graphic or thought about it this way before. But you know, it's always worth starting with the why is it called Industry 4 rather than the other languages used around the world, smart manufacturing, for smart factory, for example. But I think this is just useful just to remind ourselves that you see the acceleration here, and we'll touch on that again in a moment. But if you go back to say the 80s, when we would call that Industry 3, when computers, etc., started turning up, we see here in this graphic, we've chosen to use roughly the same graphic between 3 and 4, but just with connectivity in place. And I think that's important to reflect that whilst we are seeing, of course, artificial intelligence booming, there are many technologies out there that people have not yet accessed, which have an Industry 4 label, which have become more accessible, easier to get at, and tools that people can work with more readily than perhaps they would have. I always recall that in the 80s, I worked in a facility that established a new smart robotics center. We had probably 100 meters by 40 meters of concrete poured, and onto that went robots and smart conveyors. Components were moved in and out of machining centers based on their completed status and their bill of material tracking, etc., etc. So it's pretty smart. But you can guarantee that before any of that was done, it was drawn up in detail, probably knew where nearly every bolt, Hilti drill went into the concrete. And I can also confirm that nearly 8 years later, when I left, it was all still in exactly the same place. But it isn't now. So at the time, it was stabilized, stick it in, it is what it is when it came to robots. And I think that's true of a lot of the technologies. It was a big investment, complex investment. It required you to bring along, you know, we used to have Swiss engineers fly over all the time. It had a big safety cage around it. You couldn't go near anything. So a lot of that is what has changed. As much as the technology has accelerated, we need to think of the accessibility and the way in which we can get involved and the way in which we can participate has changed. And that's where some of these relationships like UTS and the other universities we work with are important, because it says to me, you can start a journey here. There is a way to start a journey really short and sharp. The technology is not what's holding you up from doing that, because there are entry points in everything we talk about. Sometimes it's the emotional side, or it's the getting a buddy to help you, or it's getting on that journey. So when we talk about adoption, this is also a picture somebody was shared with me yesterday, a colleague from Swinburne University. This is sort of the way in which adoption took place for landline phones, cell phones, and tablets. And there's a very interesting message here about acceleration of change. So I suspect that this is now the norm. Any technology adoption is going to be nigh on vertical. And there's probably two reasons for that. One is that the technology itself is just going to keep changing and getting better and better and faster, that you don't have years of it being vaguely rubbish. You might have a few months with Apple debugging stuff, but fundamentally we also have supply chains. And it's really important to reflect that the way in which supply chains are set up, the way in which social media is set up, communication set up, means that anything that comes along new and smart is going to be around the world pretty damn quick. But it means that technologies are able to accelerate much more vertically than perhaps they would have done before. So as we see, for example, applied artificial intelligence moving into the industrial sector, people do it using more of that. Augmented reality, I think, will be very significant when it comes to the way in which manufacturing operations work. At a point in time, and we may not be quite there yet, but at a point in time, these techniques are going to come to the factory. They are going to come to the industrial world, and they are not going to come in the way the landline phone does. The availability of them and the way they are accessed and the way in which they spread will be much more vertical than that. What that means for manufacturers, I think, is that you don't want to be at the end of that. You don't want to be the one that hasn't. You don't want to be the one that didn't. And our position from the IMCRC is you need to get involved and get started. The key for me to most of this is being somebody that's got the tenacity, the position, the leadership to be saying it's going to happen, something that's going to come on board. Let's get in and let's learn something. Some of my favorite case studies are companies that have just jumped on board, tried a technique, and now that technique has perhaps become a new division with the business, or a new marketing capability within the organization. As this continues, there's another dimension here that's important. So as we see industrial digitalization across supply chains, we're now moving into an environment where it's not just isolated pieces of technology. The more you read about what's happening, say, and Germany is always a good place to learn about where the thinking is. The connectivity of the supply chain is becoming critical. Having standards and standardization in digital communication therefore becomes critical, because we are now going to have networks that work together rather than organizations that have digital capability. Connect that with real-time integration of people, machine, and things. So that may be the starting point, could be having an app on my phone that allows me to test how things are going in the plant, through to an artificial intelligence world sitting behind the back communicating with me, or augmented reality, allowing me to work. We have a great project at the moment which is around the installation of pumps in a remote environment. Person A in the remote environment can be installing a pump with augmented reality glasses. Back at base there's a technician that can also has glasses on, can see what's going on, points at stuff back here in Melbourne, and remotely a person through the glasses sees their hands, sees these bright red gloves pointing and showing them what to do. So as we see more of that integration of digital connected supply chains, as well as the specific techniques becoming on board, that is going to take us into a world where the future of work will evolve, particularly for us manufacturers, where we are going to see a working environment that is capable of so much more. I was talking to this particular graph image to somebody this morning, and I realized actually the arrow could be the other way up. You could equally argue that when the generations that are going to come into our sector over the next 5 or 10 years, their expectations are going to be of real-time data. Their expectation is going to be, where's my augmented reality solution? I've been playing augmented reality for a while. I've had a 3D printer in the garage for 5 years. So maybe this graph is upside down. Maybe future of work is also going to drive people into an environment where they'll be looking for real-time integration and industrial digitalization. And again, as leaders in industry, I think it's that dynamic that is really fundamentally critical here. What we can do is going to change, and what people, be that customers or employees, want to do is going to change. So the future of a manufacturing environment, I think, will be significantly different to what it is today based on that. It's also just quickly talking about value add from Industry 4. We've had over 600 people operate Futuremap, and within there, there's an interesting statistic that really talks to, I'm just trying to remember whether I've got it on a slide later, but I'll talk about it here. Talks about the fact that when awareness of Industry 4 is pretty good, 70+ % of organizations will say, yeah, they're aware of it. But only 22% regularly discuss it or would involve in any kind of strategy discussion. So it's kind of like, I know about it, but I'm going to leave it on a table. And I think that's because of a third stat, which says that only 30% of people understand the competitive advantage. So what is the value of Industry 4? I think is such a fundamental question. And unfortunately, I see a lot of promotion of Industry 4, potentially from vendors, which has a really strong focus on this, on the internal, right? So the value capture of the internal. I went to 2 years ago a conference, it was labeled Industry 4, and nothing that was spoken about in that conference was beyond the walls of the factory. Fascinating stuff. I've worked with the likes of Fonterra, for example, where they've got very complex energy cycles around pasteurization and other things. Any of the brewers, you've got complex mixing, you've got very complex control systems. Absolutely, Industry 4 has a place there. Absolutely, there's a preventative maintenance scheduling, intelligent preventative maintenance, supply chain sequencing, risk mitigation, robotics, productivity. Yeah, tons of that, right? Within the walls, and there's a great that. But unfortunately, I think that, and our experience has been, is that people miss the external potential. The idea that actually is Industry 4 largely there for you to give you an external dimension? Does it take you further? Does it give you more? There's a great organisation up in Queensland called HeliMods who customise helicopters. So for fire, police, people like that, anybody that wants a customised helicopter, absolutely they have to do the work of the manufacturing environment, but the value that they offer to the customer changes significantly when somebody that is specifying a helicopter can sit in a mixed reality or completely virtual environment and see what they're going to get, can look at their product, and they can then use that data to flow straight through to their facility, and then in a mixed reality environment, again, do downstream maintenance and servicing, etc. Is your potential downstream? Is it outside of the facility? So I think it's really important when we think about Industry 4 that we balance both of those up, that there is a, who you are. If you are a facility with very complex equipment like a bottling plants, absolutely Industry 4 will offer you a lot when it comes to digitization, AI, digital twin, scenario planning, etc. But you may be an organization where the real opportunity here is external to yourself. So thinking about the market becomes what's dominant for you. As I said before, the first steps are more attainable. Up until about half an hour ago, I had a 3D printer sat next to me. So I think we all know people that are sort of 3D printing and moving down that path. Getting one, trying it, putting it in the engineering department, seeing what happens. Augmented reality, the same. Cobots, great company north of Melbourne. Small organisation, 5 people, had a task that they said it's a bit dull, repetitive. So they went out and got a robot, learned how to program it, and it now sits there all day doing a stacking job that they didn't want to do. Allows them to do more value-adding stuff. They didn't commission a complex robotics engineering environment to do it. They jumped in and had a go. Real-time data. There's a principle called factory in a box, which is, you literally get set up with 5 or 6 sensors to allow you to start measuring some of the key things within your facility. And artificial intelligence. We talk about artificial intelligence, but underneath that, the principle of machine learning could be just some automated routines, which again are not significantly difficult to get in and have a go. So again, I know I bang on about that, but we have to at every time not get too worried about knowing what the end game is. It's the classic with the paradox of choice principle. There is so much potential out there. The risk is that we spend too long thinking about it and not enough time doing something. So I'm a bit of an advocate for that. And I think that really plays into the change equation principles. And again, is our dynamic as a country, because we don't see enough adoption, we're not leading in a lot of these things. Is it because our change dynamic is not quite as robust as it could be or strong enough yet? And I like this, which comes from a guy called Gleischer. It's pretty old, but well proven. And if you think about what I've been talking about, absolutely, we all see that there are some great technologies out there. But if we're going to do something, we need to make sure we've thought about what it actually means to us, to our teams, to our employees, to our stakeholders. And the argument here, the suggestion here is that change happens when the products of dissatisfaction with current state, a clear vision of a compelling future, and practical first steps are greater than the resistances. So dissatisfaction, could we do more? Are we missing out on some market? Are our competitors taking our places? The vision, have I seen something? And again, the university is a great place. Tech Lab within UTS, great place to go and see what's happening, what people are doing, get a sense of the art of the possible. But practical first steps is very often the barrier. What does round 1 and 2 look like? So again, we as IMCRC currently operate a small grant program called Activate to help people think through. They may have a project that's reasonably small that they want to push forward. And that's, again, helping people with the first steps in the same way a Tech Lab, the universities would. Thinking about what that is, I think, is often the dynamic, the bit that's missing in the change equation, and makes it hard for people to overcome the emotional cost of stepping into a space as a leader you maybe don't know as well as you wish you did. None of us like to be exposed, do we, right, in that environment that says, I'll stick with, let's solve it the way I've done it for 10 years because I feel like a leader doing that way. Well, maybe leadership's beyond that. Leadership is stepping out of that. Very quickly onto our role then, and why we push what we feel Futuremap does to help with this. As I've said, we believe strongly that the tools are out there, the techniques are out there, the solutions are out there, the partners are out there. So people need to be thinking about, how do I get going? How do I move from being a company that is aware to one that is discussing this, that is doing something about it, is taking action and understand the competitive advantage? We operate Futuremap as a tool that does 2 things. It's a combination of a survey, as you can see over there, got it right. Plus an event where we will talk in a lot more detail about some of the things I've spoken about today, but also bring in some case studies. I think people love to hear case studies. It really helps people think through what it means for them. And then Futuremap takes people through 4 quadrants. We ask people about their market perception. What opportunities are there? Have you taken those opportunities? And what you could do. And in each of these survey questions, we ask, where are you now? And where would you like to be in 2 years? So we like to think 2 years, I think, is about right, given the rate of acceleration of change. Gives you a chance to do something, but doesn't set you up with a, you know, the world is going to be completely different in 10 years. So in market, we talk about servitization. Are you thinking about how you could take your product from being a buy the product to being buy a service? What could you offer downstream or upstream? Is NPD actually what people value? Is downstream data monitoring what people value? Is the concept, for example, of you know, instead of going to buy pool chemicals, if my pool filter is Wi-Fi connected to a distributor and it can auto-analyze my pool, do the chemicals just turn up and I just throw them in, or do I auto dose? What could I, you know, what do I do downstream to take advantage of technology to change my view in the market? The second quadrant then looks at leadership, and I think, as I've touched on, I think it's probably the most important segment. To be fair, for most people that complete Futuremap, they acknowledge that it's the area where they need to do more. So we talk in there about just general leadership, communication style. We talk a little bit about change management and sustainability we bring into there, as well as that. How's that sitting on the agenda, as well as continuous improvement. So again, this is sort of testing, am I ready for this? It's one thing knowing that I want to bring in a really complex project. I want to go out to the unis. I want to do something fantastic. But is the business ready for it? Is my leadership style going to work? Are we talking about strategy enough? Am I going to bring the workforce with me? Am I doing a good job of that? Thirdly, we talk about innovation. So are you innovative? Are you set up to be innovative? So we talk there a little bit about it's the dynamic of the organization. Mechanistic? Do you kind of flow year on year? Or is there an ability in there to rip it up, to rethink, to reshape at a rate of acceleration that's fast enough in a changing world? And lastly, we talk about digital itself, adoption. What are you doing in there? The idea being that when we stepped across those, you get a pretty clear map of what can be done, what could be done, and areas of focus. So I think John will talk about it again later, but just quickly throwing it up in there if I get out of the way. During November, we are going to run a full Futuremap workshop hosted by Georges River Council. John will put it up again. But please, great opportunity just to come along and learn a bit more about Industry 4, but also to reflect. We think it is definitely an opportunity for people to reflect on where they are. And let me just think out of the way a second. And what we really do as part of that is the reflection we've talked about. Hopefully you would learn a little bit more about through some of the case studies. We have a portal environment that will be released as early 21. It's going to beta testing this week, allowing you to compare some of your scores. So look at what other people have done, but also leads you through into connections. So we try and give you more than just the survey. It's about education. It's about helping people think about what the journey could be. And just quickly, really, on a few of these, I'll get even smaller. Having done this with over 600 companies, there's a few stats here that I think are interesting, that tell us a bit about where people are on Industry 4, what their journey has been, and how they feel about it. So, for example, I'll just run through some of these, and sorry, just quickly. People that complete Futuremap, we do protect their data very consciously. We have a really clear policy. We don't, for example, I have 600 companies and I have a list of how many of those want to do robotics in 2 years. We don't make that available to robotics organizations. What we do allow is organizations like governments to look at de-identified aggregated data. So put it all together, take all the names off who's who, we don't know that. So that's where this comes from. But this is very useful data. So for example, 47% don't have a technology plan. So that's linked to strategy, but everybody wants to improve it. but actually when you talk to people, they don't actually have a plan to do the plan. They're not thinking that way. So when you poke people in Futuremap, people are saying, yeah, I do need to think about my technology plan. What we hope is the UTS teams, the other university teams, are good at helping people say, okay, help me do that. Because fundamentally, if technology is doing that, if I haven't got a plan to think about how it's going to impact my company, then I'm not going to be part of that game. So that's a slightly worrying number. Most companies, more than 95% of companies, want to provide better real-time data to their employees. It is out there, some organizations do it, and maybe real-time data is the perfect starting place. Factory in a box is a great little simple principle of let's get some real-time data in my facility and see what we do with it. Real-time data, very accessible, very low investment capital, but starting a digital journey. So the fact that most want to do it is a positive sign. I just want to make sure that they do it. Right? This one, I left this one in because partly just because I think it's interesting. 45% over the last 2 years, 3 years have said they wanted to increase their export revenues. I'm going to be fascinated to see whether that's changed. Has the dynamic of import-export globally changed significantly as a result of us having been through what we've been through for the last 2 years and still going through it? More than 85% believe they provide significant benefits, that's positive, but less than 50% have converted this to a strategic lock-in. Now, we talk about strategic lock-in in the survey largely because I think Industry 4 creates huge opportunities for that, huge opportunities to extend your product into a downstream offering that means customers are more significantly locked in, more significantly committed to you, less likely to clear off and go and work with a different supplier. That relationship, I think, is very critical. It's absolutely one of the things Industry 4 can offer, but we've still got less than 50% saying, yeah, we've got a strategic lock-in, so big opportunity there. 90% of businesses want to be operating an effective improvement culture, but only 33% say they're there at the moment. And again, as somebody who's delivered lean plenty of parts of the world for the 15 odd years, I see that here. I see that there is still an underlying requirement to improve our general performance when it comes to continuous improvement. So it could be workflow, could be factory flow. So again, we talk about that as a base position to imply that principle that says, am I ready for digital work if I haven't done core continuous improvement stuff? If I don't have a good organizational flow, is there any point putting a robot on a piece of kit that's suboptimal already, or it's not a bottleneck, etc., etc. And lastly, most organizations, if you talk about their digitalization skill level, currently they say 25%, so they have reasonable digital skills, but 90% of them want to be there in 2 years. So we see the ambition. We absolutely see the ambition around the organization. So just in closing, really, we need to be clear, I think, as a country, as an environment, on how Industry 4 can help manufacturing grow. And for me, it is a bit of a split decision, right? And it's about the way you think. So I don't think we want to be focusing on Industry 4 this way. This is the traditional, the simple way, put it in a box way of thinking would be say, well, digital's about finance. It's just about cybersecurity. The IT guy, gal can do it. Or it's about optimizing one piece of kit. It's local, a bit of lag data. Let's make sure at the end of the week we've got how did we go. As long as I'm all right, change is linear. I'll do something, then I'll do something, I'll do something. I know my risks and the opportunities are here within my plant. Changing really to a world where we think more about the idea that no, digital, what we're talking about here is business strategies, differentiated value. It is a leadership question. It is not an IT question. It should be about connecting the future of work. How do we connect people, suppliers, customers across the chain? Real-time connectivity, adding AI on top of that, predictive activity, about collaboration and changes, as we've said, absolutely exponential. The risks, absolutely, the risks of being engaged or not engaged. If we're not thinking cybersecurity very clearly as part of this, we're going to have something else come along and make life difficult. And last comment, opportunities everywhere. From our point of view, we've seen in all the organizations we've worked with, opportunities everywhere, upstream, downstream, some fantastic companies out there. So our encouragement is to join in. We'd love you to come along to that event and learn more from us, and to continue to engage with the councils, with John and co. So with that, I'll hand you over to John and talk a little bit about what they're doing and how they seek to support further. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Simon. I'm just going to share my screen now. So, is everybody able to see that? Okay. So, following on from Simon, just a bit of background in regards to SME at UTS. So, my team at UTS, the Corporate Relations Centre, we fundamentally manage the strategic partnerships for UTS, typically with large organisations. But what we've observed over the past probably 5 to 10 years is that not only from our perspective, but the university sector in Australia, we haven't been engaging well with SMEs. And so probably about 2 or 3 years ago, we were at a conference and had that light bulb moment around looking at developing a holistic program that would better support SMEs coming into our ecosystem and, putting them at the center and supporting them through their growth, through the, the different mechanisms that we have at UTS there. And one of the really interesting things that we did see that came out from a report from New South Wales Department of Industry probably about 18 months ago was understanding the barriers of why SMEs haven't been engaging with universities. So a lot of the times they find it quite hard to find the front door or even just access the right people to support them on their journey. Also from a value, a clear value proposition. So just understanding, what will the university be able to do for them? Something that's clear, tangible, obviously relating to costs and the like there, but also the support mechanisms around relationship management. And so not, SMEs have felt in the past that they weren't being viewed as important as large organisations when they were engaging with universities. But the reality is, we know the stats that 85–86% of people in the workforce are working in an SME, and so it's a big part of our workforce. And obviously, the past couple of years as well, we've seen a real push from the government around trying to re-energise or rebirth manufacturing capability in Australia. So that's why, for us, we've really looked at working with IMCRC and ultimately, forming this partnership to utilise Futuremap as part of an onboarding process to SME at UTS. So with SME at UTS, our perspective was really to develop this holistic engagement program for SMEs in New South Wales and really break the mold of the traditional research engagement model that most universities have. So there are a couple of good models out there within New South Wales and also around Australia, but it's through the lens of research. And what we've seen so far, engaging with SMEs who've come through the Futuremap and SME programs so far this year, is that a lot of the times the problem statement is not around being answered by a research question. It's actually relating to talent. It's understanding, how they could potentially be coming in and access our infrastructure. It could be actually around, leadership and innovation management as well. So, ultimately, we will see a pathway that will take them along, experimentation, proof of concept, MVPs that, will involve research expertise, but it's not the starting point. So we wanted to take a very holistic approach and put the SME at the center of the program. And ultimately, being able to seek out what the big wicked problems they have and how can we best answer that through both student engagement and academic engagement. Because what we've seen also, as I said before, around the talent piece is there's a real challenge in the market right now where, grads will come out of universities and, that they are more aligned to going work for a big business or a big organisation like, the likes of CBA, New South Wales State Government, Atlassian, whoever it is, from a brand perspective. But the reality is, and I'm a good case study, I came out of university and my formative years was working in an SME, and I see that as an amazing platform for where I've got within my career. So for what we're trying to do is also, in terms of educating the students, in terms of the opportunities to work with SMEs, and from a geographical perspective, what we also want to see is that a lot of our students who are based in Sydney don't live close to our campus. So they're out in west, southwest, southern Sydney or northern Sydney, and they're traveling into the campus, pre-COVID. And so internship opportunities and grad roles may not always be something that they're looking at in their own area. So through this program, hopefully we're going to highlight that to students, that there are actually opportunities for you to do internships and potentially have grad roles with SMEs in your local area. In terms of the program, obviously this is a linear pathway, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll come in at 1 and go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Futuremap definitely is the starting point for us. So coming through the workshop and coming out at the end of it with obviously the report. And what we do within the next steps is really looking at unpacking that report. So within a week or two of the Futuremap workshop running, my team will sit down, with the SME who's come through the program, and we unpack that report and really look at the 2 or 3 priorities for their business and align that to particular obviously relevant engagement mechanisms within the university. So you could start off at 1 and be going into 4, 5, 6. It really depends on the maturity, of your organisation and just understanding, the priority piece. In terms of the innovation leadership skills, digital learning, there's various mechanisms that, we can open up in terms of the university, whether it's through the business school. We've got an online learning platform, which is called UTS Open. So in terms of what we call short forms of learning, micro-credentials, short courses, these are accessible to SMEs as well. As I said, we really want to highlight the value of students and bringing students into SMEs, and obviously, regardless of the discipline, how they can obviously transfer knowledge and create knowledge with you in terms of your innovation process. Obviously, number 4, the facilities, not only at UTS, but, most university sector in Australia, has billions of dollars worth of unbelievable technology and infrastructure, but we haven't made it easy for industry or SMEs particularly to come in and be able to explore that. So through our program, very much we're looking at how we can, provide tours and just understanding the value of this infrastructure and how you can even, start experimenting with us, so that you're not having to think about, the investment in this type of technology earlier in the piece. And then 5, 6, 7, very much looking at connecting with the various parts of the university in regards to how we can start doing proof of concepts and experimentation, which aligns to those problem statements there. And so far, what we've seen, with the SMEs that have come through, there's a very clear messaging around digitization. So, it's looking at automation, robotics. Data is something that overlays everything. So, understanding, the ability to capture those insights from the data that you're either creating or capturing, and how that's going to be better, in terms of business value for yourself there. The one thing also is we're not wanting to, do this alone. We very much see ourselves as part of an ecosystem, and we're very appreciative of the relationships that we're developing with council. So Tanya, in terms of Georges River Council, and being mindful that we're trying to support the economic development strategies of these councils within the LGA. So, this is very much a partnership that we will do with councils around Sydney, where there is a, concentration of SMEs that are looking at their, manufacturing capability, but also just being mindful of, across the screen of all the other different players within the ecosystem, and especially from the funding that's available, because a lot of SMEs don't actually realize that there is, pots of money out there, both at state and federal level, that they can access to actually start these journeys in terms of technology implementation or experimentation. So we really want to try and, support that process and make it as easy as possible. In terms of our why, so benefits to the key stakeholders, obviously sort of fairly clear across that. There's a clear messaging coming out of government in terms of jobs and growth. Obviously from an SME perspective, ticking off all those boxes there. For us, what's really important is, the learnings we're taking away from this. Universities, in terms of our purpose, is about teaching, learning and research. And so for us, it's about, the knowledge creation, the knowledge transfer, but for also, our learnings on how we can better serve this market and, individual SMEs. And then, as I said, I think there's a really strong case in terms of the value of SMEs in terms of coming in, supporting these businesses, but ultimately being that future pipeline in terms of, working with and working in SMEs in the future there. I've pretty much come to the end of my conversation, but I wanted to open up to everybody in terms of really a Q&A. Let me just close that off there now. So really, today we've got now 15 minutes left. So, people on the call now, if you do, based on Simon and my presentation, really just, if there's any questions that you have or comments, appreciate that feedback and, happy to answer those now, obviously thinking about the Futuremap workshop that we're going to be doing in November. So, whether it's popping something in the chat or, anyone happy to chime in now, please feel free.
I'll start the questions off, John. It's Tanya. Just with our attendees or our SMEs that wish to attend the interactive workshop, what will you require from them in terms of their participation?
I might let Simon answer that one. Yep. Fundamentally, openness, etc., etc. We don't need to bring anything. Obviously, we run that event largely as a presentation where we duck in and out of the survey. So honesty is the key thing for us. The joy of Futuremap, one of the things that's important, I think, for Futuremap is that we don't. It's not a benchmark, it's not a score, it's not TS 16949 or ISO 14000. So we encourage people to be honest, and that's obviously important for us when it comes to government policy use of the data, that we get real data. So that's important. So honesty is probably the most important thing. There's no benchmark to it. We do ask generally that it's completed by people who are in leadership positions. So we think it's more relevant there because that's what we're trying to tease people into action. So that's the one thing we would say. It's okay if more than one person from the same organisation wants to do it. That can be useful. So from that point of view, no. In terms of, I noticed there's a comment there on cost and structure. I don't think we've got a cost assigned for this one, have we, John?
No, we don't.
No. So I always have to check because I think 99.999% of the times we run Futuremap, there's no cost. There has been a couple where there's been a really small cost. The joy of being a CRC, and my role is that CRC are government-funded support organisations. So I'm funded through the government. I'm already paid for. We're a not-for-profit organisation, so we don't charge people to attend Futuremap. And John, just remind me, we have done Futuremap a few different ways. Can you just remind me, did we go hybrid? So somebody's asked about the time, etc. We do
yes,
an all-inclusive one, I think, aren't we? Do it all at once one this time.
I think for the one in November, we are looking at having it totally virtual, unless restrictions ease once again.
Yeah, so obviously, again, forgive us for the little uncertainty. It's just that at the moment, every time we do an event, we have to be really cautious about what rules are in place, where and when, right? So yeah, generally 2.5 hours is about right. And the time is because it allows us to, we cover quite a lot of content, quite a lot of case studies, a lot of stories. I think they're important. But then also asking people then to complete the survey as we go along. If we did it really quick, first thing, people tend to give it a bit less attention as well. So great when we're in outside of COVID world, when we're able to get people in a room, focus a little bit more, but we have to just live with that for the moment.
Was there any other questions just in regards to Futuremap or SME UTS? I suppose what I can, just in I suppose some case studies and what Simon had talked about. So we've had 2 Futuremap sessions that have happened this year, obviously mindful of COVID. So we had one with Campbelltown City Council, and also we just held one at UTS, which was a virtual Futuremap workshop. And with the SMEs that have come through so far, I think they've all alluded to the fact around, how are they looking at, looking at the automation piece, the digitization piece. They're all very different businesses as well, which is quite exciting. So, we've got one particular business who is basically working in the motorsports industry. We have one that's working in beauty products. So for them, they're not manufacturing, but they're looking at data. For them, they've come to us and said, listen, data capability, both from technology, but also capability and skills is a big area that we're looking at. Others, we've got one out in Blacktown, who is a traditional manufacturer for mining industry. And, ultimately for them, they're looking at how they can digitize their manufacturing process. So, very much getting in and understanding these businesses. And, with COVID restrictions lifting, being able to go out and visit these businesses is really key to, our academic experts. But, it takes time. Relationship management takes time, but also just the scoping of what can be done. But, for us as a university, we're very industry engaged and solutions focused. So we want to be able to impart value at each time that we interact with SMEs. So I think that's a good message to take away from today. And Tanya, just as a follow-up, as a confirmation, our Futuremap workshop is on the 10th of November. That's correct?
That's correct, yes.
Excellent. Okay, not a problem. So we'll obviously, as a follow-up to this, be sending everybody the link for the workshop, and obviously promoting this to various channels there as well. So yeah, but obviously Tanya, thank you in terms of broadening the scope. So if there are other SMEs that sit outside of the LGA, more than happy for them to come through too.
It's a limit. Just to reiterate, the workshop is actually only limited to 20 attendees, so it is first in, best dressed. So hopefully we can get to that. That just allows sort of that more focus, more intimately into your business. So hopefully we have everybody here attending.
Why will we?
Excellent.
Right.
Well, Tanya, thank you very much for your support today, and obviously the council for hosting this webinar. And obviously for us, it's about developing a long-term relationship with the council and obviously SMEs in the LGA too. So this is not just a have an event and that's it. We see in terms of the sustainability and longevity of SME at UTS. Is something that we'd like to be able to do multiple Futuremap workshops within each LGA that has got the manufacturing capacities, and so obviously we are looking at Western, Southwestern, Southern Sydney, and obviously the relationship that we have with IMCRC over time, being able to look at scaling to regional parts of New South Wales as well, because it's not just about Sydney Metro. We do want to, be an inclusive program that supports SMEs regardless of where they are.
Well, on that note, I hope to see everyone on the 10th of November. Thanks again to obviously UTS and John Szabo and his team, and Simon Dawson from IMCRC. And again, thanks everyone for your attendance, and we hope to see you on the 10th of November.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye.